Imagine opening your fridge tomorrow and finding no honey, no sweet fruit, no buzzing life to pollinate the crops, just empty shelves and the uneasy feeling that something tiny has slipped through the cracks of our survival. In the next few minutes you'll discover why a creature no bigger than a thumb could decide whether your breakfast ever exists again. We travel back to a time when the world was a wild, untamed tapestry of ferns and giant insects, over 100 million years ago. In that ancient sky, a solitary wasp prowled alone, hunting for a single egg to lay. Then, as if a cosmic script rewrote its destiny, a mutation flickered in its DNA, granting it the ability to share tasks with its kin. Suddenly, the lone hunter became the first engineer, stitching wax together like a primitive builder, laying down the blueprint for a society that would later become the most efficient factory on the planet. Picture a comic book panel where a lone insect dons a glowing badge, signaling the birth of the hive, an elite squad of bioarchitects, each with a role etched into its very cells. From those humble beginnings, the hive evolved into a sophisticated network of living machines. Their bodies are not just flesh and chitin, they are precision instruments. Inside each abdomen lies a miniature gyroscope, a natural lidar system that reads polarized sunlight, allowing the bee to navigate with flawless accuracy even on the cloudiest days. Their wings beat at a frequency that creates a silent vortex, a micro-aircraft capable of hovering and darting with the agility of a fighter jet. When a flower opens, the bee's eyes, composed of thousands of tiny lenses, scan ultraviolet patterns invisible to human sight, decoding a hidden map that tells it exactly where the richest nectar lies. But the true marvel lies in their communication. Imagine a wireless network, encrypted with chemicals instead of radio waves, where a single bee can broadcast a message that travels through the air like an invisible ripple. A tiny drop of pheromone released on a flower becomes a beacon, guiding dozens of sisters to the same source, each following the scented trail like a data packet in a mesh network. Their colony operates like a democratic algorithm, no single queen issues orders, yet the hive functions with the coordination of a perfectly synced server farm. Every decision emerges from countless tiny interactions, a consensus built on the collective pulse of the group. Now, let's shatter a myth that has lingered for centuries. Most people picture the queen as a tyrant, perched atop a throne, commanding the workforce like a monarch. In reality, the queen is simply a superb egg layer, a biological printer that churns out the next generation. The real leadership comes from the workers, who evaluate the needs of the colony, allocate resources, and even replace the queen if she falters. This isn't a hierarchy, it's a fluid, self-correcting system where the hive's health depends on the constant, silent negotiations of its members. Here's where the story takes a darker turn. Across the globe, a silent enemy spreads, pesticides that act like a virus, erasing the bees' internal GPS and scrambling their pheromone signals. These chemicals don't just kill, they disorient, causing bees to lose their way back to the hive, wandering into fields where they perish without ever pollinating a single blossom. The result is a cascade of loss, fewer fruits, dwindling crops, rising prices at the market, and an economy that feels the sting of a missing pollinator. It's a tragedy playing out in fields and gardens, hidden from our daily view, yet its impact ripples through every plate we set on the table. Think about the last time you enjoyed a slice of fresh strawberry or a drizzle of honey on toast. That simple pleasure is the product of millions of these tiny machines working in perfect harmony. If they disappear, those moments vanish too. The stakes are higher than a mere inconvenience, they touch the very fabric of our food security. What do you think about this hidden battle? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm eager to hear how you feel about the role these insects play in our lives. If this revelation is opening your eyes to a world you never imagined, consider hitting that subscribe button. Together we can keep uncovering the secrets that shape our planet, one astonishing story at a time. The truth behind the silent battle is far more intricate than a single chemical. In every meadow, in every orchard, a hidden network of tiny engineers works around the clock, translating sunlight into the sweet nectar that fuels not just their own colonies but the very fabric of life on this planet. Imagine a field of blooming lavender, each blossom a miniature solar panel, capturing photons and converting them into a sugary cocktail. The bees, with their hypersensitive antennae, act as autonomous drones, sampling the chemical signature of each flower, recording the data, and then broadcasting it back to the hive. Inside the hive, a bustling control center processes this information, allocating workers to the most promising patches, adjusting flight patterns in real time, and even predicting the optimal time to harvest pollen before a storm rolls in. What most people never see is the level of precision that governs these operations. A bee can weigh a single grain of pollen with an accuracy that would make the most advanced laboratory scales blush. Its wings beat at a frequency that creates a vortex, allowing it to hover with the stability of a helicopter and then dart forward like a fighter jet. The muscles that power those wings are powered by a cascade of biochemical reactions that convert sugar into ATP at a rate that rivals the most efficient engines ever built. This is not a random flutter, it is a symphony of mechanical and chemical processes tuned over millions of years. Yet, every symphony needs a conductor, and in this case the conductor is not a single individual but a distributed consensus algorithm. When a forager returns with a promising source of nectar, it performs a waggle dance that encodes direction, distance, and quality. The dance is a language of motion, a series of figure eights that translate into vectors understood by every other worker. The more enthusiastic the dance, the more recruits are dispatched, and the hive's resources are reallocated in milliseconds. This decentralized decision-making system means that the colony can adapt to changes faster than any human-made network. It is a living example of a self-optimizing algorithm, one that has inspired countless computer scientists seeking to replicate its efficiency. But the algorithm is being corrupted. Pesticides that were designed to target pests have seeped into the very communication channels the bees rely on. Neonicotinoids, for instance, bind to the receptors in their nervous system, blurring the signals that would normally guide them back home. The result is a phenomenon known as disorientation syndrome, where thousands of workers abandon their routes, wander into barren fields, and eventually perish without ever delivering a single grain of pollen. The loss is not merely numerical, it is a collapse of the information flow that sustains the colony's productivity. When the data stream is interrupted, the hive's internal economy falters, and the ripple effect spreads outward to every plant that depends on that pollination. Beyond chemicals, climate change adds another layer of complexity. Shifts in temperature alter the timing of flower blooming, creating a mismatch between when bees emerge from their winter dormancy and when food sources become available. In some regions, early springs cause flowers to bloom before the bees have fully matured, leaving them starving. In other areas, prolonged droughts shrink the floral landscape, forcing the bees to travel farther, expending more energy and increasing exposure to predators and parasites. These stressors act like a multi-vector attack, simultaneously degrading the hive's health, its navigational ability, and its reproductive capacity. Parasites, too, play a sinister role. The varroa mite, a tiny arachnid that clings to a bee's body, feeds on its hemolymph, weakening the individual and acting as a vector for lethal viruses. Infested colonies often display a phenomenon called deformed wing syndrome, where the emerging adults are unable to fly, essentially grounding an entire generation. The mites reproduce within the brood cells, using the very infrastructure built by the workers to propagate themselves. Beekeepers have tried to combat the infestation with chemical treatments, but these often have unintended side effects, further disrupting the delicate balance of the hive's internal ecosystem. All these threats converge on a single point: the loss of biodiversity. Bees are not isolated actors, they are keystone species. Their decline leads to a cascade of ecological consequences. Without effective pollination, many wild plants fail to reproduce, reducing habitat for countless other organisms, from insects to birds to mammals. The loss of plant diversity also diminishes soil health, as fewer root structures mean less carbon sequestration and increased erosion. In agricultural landscapes, the impact is even more pronounced. Crops such as almonds, apples, blueberries, and countless vegetables rely heavily on bee pollination. When yields drop, farmers face reduced profits, leading to higher prices for consumers and, in extreme cases, food shortages in regions already vulnerable to famine. The economic implications extend far beyond the grocery aisle. The global pollination market is valued in the billions of dollars, and each percentage point of decline translates into billions of dollars lost each year. Small-scale farmers, who depend on natural pollinators rather than expensive mechanical alternatives, are hit hardest. Their livelihoods become precarious, and the communities that revolve around these farms experience a cascade of social challenges, from reduced employment to increased migration to urban centers. The ripple effect of a single hive's failure can therefore be felt across entire economies, weaving a web of interdependence that underscores how intimately human prosperity is tied to these tiny architects. Yet, amidst this bleak panorama, there are stories of resilience and innovation that spark hope. Researchers have begun to decode the genetic basis of pesticide resistance, identifying specific alleles that confer a degree of immunity. By breeding these traits into managed colonies, they are creating lines of bees that can survive in harsher chemical environments. Simultaneously, advances in precision agriculture allow farmers to map floral resources in real time, optimizing planting schedules to align with bee activity windows, thereby reducing the need for chemical interventions. Urban beekeeping initiatives are sprouting on rooftops and balconies, turning concrete jungles into thriving pollinator corridors. These projects not only provide supplemental forage for wild populations but also reconnect city dwellers with the natural world, fostering stewardship and awareness. Technology also offers tools to monitor hive health with unprecedented granularity. Miniature sensors placed inside the hive can track temperature, humidity, acoustic vibrations, and even the frequency of waggle dances. By analyzing this data with machine learning algorithms, beekeepers can predict disease outbreaks before they become visible, adjusting treatment protocols proactively. Satellite imagery, combined with AI-driven models, can identify areas of high pesticide runoff, allowing policymakers to target mitigation efforts where they are needed most. These innovations illustrate how the same principles of precision and algorithmic control that bees have mastered for millions of years can be harnessed by humans to protect them. The narrative, however, would be incomplete without acknowledging the simple, everyday actions that each individual can take. Planting a diversity of native flowering species in gardens, balconies, and windowsills creates microhabitats that serve as stepping stones for foraging bees. Reducing the use of broad-spectrum pesticides in lawns and opting for organic or mechanical pest control methods helps preserve the chemical integrity of the environment. Supporting local honey producers and beekeepers who practice sustainable management contributes to the health of regional pollinator networks. Even the choice to purchase fruit and vegetables that are certified as pollinator-friendly can drive market demand toward more bee-centric agricultural practices. Consider a quiet morning, when the sun rises over a suburban street and a solitary bee emerges from a flower, its tiny legs dusted with pollen. It pauses on the edge of a leaf, its wings shimmering like a translucent veil, and then takes flight, navigating by the polarized light of the sky. In that fleeting moment, a complex series of biochemical processes, evolutionary adaptations, and ecological relationships converge to sustain a single organism that, in turn, sustains the world around it. The image is both humble and monumental, a reminder that the grandest systems often hinge on the smallest components. When you look at a slice of fresh bread, a juicy orange, or a drizzle of golden honey on a warm biscuit, you are witnessing the invisible labor of millions of these precise machines. Their existence is not a luxury, it is a necessity woven into the fabric of life. As you savor those flavors, imagine the alternative, a world where the colors of a summer garden fade, where the hum of insects is replaced by silence, where the very act of feeding becomes a struggle against scarcity. The stakes are not abstract, they are present in every bite, in every breath of fresh air, in every moment of quiet wonder that nature offers. So, as the sun sets over fields that have just been visited by a fleet of diligent foragers, take a moment to reflect on the delicate balance that has allowed this scene to unfold. Let the image of a bee returning to its hive, its abdomen laden with pollen, serve as a symbol of resilience, cooperation, and the interconnectedness of all life. Share this story with friends, family, and anyone who enjoys the simple pleasures of a fruit-filled plate or a spoonful of honey. By spreading awareness, you become part of the communication network that, much like the waggle dance, amplifies the message across distances. If this journey through the hidden world of bees has opened your eyes to the intricate dance of nature and the urgent challenges it faces, consider leaving a comment below with your thoughts, experiences, or ideas for protecting these vital pollinators. Your voice adds to the collective chorus that can drive change. And if you feel inspired to explore more hidden marvels that shape our planet, hit the like button and subscribe, so we can continue uncovering the astonishing stories that surround us, one breathtaking revelation at a time. Together, we can ensure that the hum of the hive never fades, that the fields remain vibrant, and that future generations inherit a world where the whisper of wings continues to echo across the landscape.